So I'm going to take you into Excel right now. If you know how to use Excel, what I am about to do might be very easy for you. If you've never seen or used Excel yourself, you can slow it down and watch what happens and how I'm putting the numbers in, but you're not going to be tested on how to use Excel. There are other courses for that. But what Excel is going to do is allow us to compare things in the future of different situations. It's really great when you want to change one number and boom, all the stuff changes according to the one change you made. I first saw Excel back in around 1983 or 84, and it was not really Excel, it was a spreadsheet. The spreadsheet back then that I saw was called Lotus 123, and it actually was derived from VisiCalc, which was made up in the late 1970s and put Apple Computing on the map, taking its Apple II model and giving it an application that nobody else had, which was the first spreadsheet. Spreadsheets have existed for years, but spreadsheets used to be just spread out sheets of paper with numbers written by, I would say, mostly men, but some women. Years ago, they would take all the computations and do them in rows and columns for each situation that might arise. And then if someone said, oh no, I need that to be 10% instead of 9%, you could basically tear that sheet up and start all over again. And it would take days, and multiple people would do it, and it would literally cover a giant table. But the electronic spreadsheet started saying, why don't we look at spots in the computer that refer to information that it can dig into and put to work over and over again to do the same job. That's what a spreadsheet's going to do. So I want to show you how this works with simple interest only. So what I want to do is I want to say the number of periods. So I'm going to put the name periods up there. And I think I can blow this up a little bit bigger. Let's see. Why don't I take the columns and make them 3 times as big? So I will format the column width, if I can get on column, right, steady hand. Take it from the existing 1 to 3. Great. And I'll take my row heights and I'll make them 3 times as big. And the row height used to be 0.18. Now it'll be 3 times that, 0.54. And I'll have bigger columns, and there'll be something more likely that you can see. So now I'm going to go to this. Why don't I just do it? Whoa. Go over here and hit all the columns. I'm going to need about 5 columns of data, but I'll get ready for that. And I'll format my cells to make sure that they give me a font that's big enough for you to be able to really see. So I think maybe a 20 would be good. And it sounds good to me. Let's see how that looks. Periods. Okay. Looks pretty good. So period. All right. So let's get that again. Period. And then what I want to do is have the starting balance of your account. Now, imagine that your balance is, you're entitled to get your money back at the end. So that's part of your balance. You can't walk in and just take it out, but that's what your money is worth after you've waited long enough with this simple interest. Then we're going to find out what the interest is worth. Interesti, no interest. Okay, I can type, but it's not my strong suit. So anyway, interest. And that's for the period. You make that much interest. And then I want to have the end balance. And then over here, I want to have my total interest. And these will be things that'll matter to me. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, let's start with period number 1. And the next period is going to, I went down to row 3 instead of row 2. Period, the top row, number 1, lists the title of each column. And I put number 1 in for the first period. What I want to do for the second one is I want to hit equals. So it's going to do a computation. I want to go click on the number that's above it. Currently it's a 1, and say plus 1. And if you look at what happens, if I take that and I run it down, instead of saying I'm going to keep writing 2's, every time I do that, it's going to look at the row above and add 1 to it. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to just do what's called a fill down. And the way to do that, among others, is to grab the corner and drag it down. And now that's got me looking at 25 periods of payments. I'm going to set up my starting balance for that term at $12,000. 12, 1, 2, 3 zeros. Get that. For interest, what I'd like to do is have this thing equal. Now we're going with 3%. Here's what goes on with 3%. I don't just leave it as 3. I do that. But I want to divide it by 100 because of percent. Now the 3% is ready to happen. And I have to multiply it by the 12,000. Oh, wait, there's more. Each period here is going to be a month, and they're paying me 3% for the entire year. So I have to divide that to make it even smaller. You don't get 3% every month because they're paying you monthly. You get 3% total for the year, and they slice it up across 12 months. So what I'm going to do now is, besides dividing by what I call 100 for percent, I'm going to divide by 12 for months. And now I can find the interest is there, 0.0025. I didn't multiply it yet. I need to multiply it by my starting balance, which is this $12,000. And there's $30. So now I want to see something else here. What's the ending balance? At the end of that time, how much money am I entitled to? I should get my principal back, and I should get that $30. So this is equal to, let me grab whatever's sitting here, plus, let me grab the interest for this period. Cool, $12,000 and $30. How much interest do I have total in this one? I have just the 30 that's sitting in that column, but it's important the way I've designed it. It's looking where information is as much as possible. Now this is sort of bothering me, the way they're not lined up so wonderfully, so I'm going to go ahead and let this thing, I haven't, and if anybody knows, I'd be happy to hear from you, how to get these toolbars to show up. I've asked a lot of people, but I haven't really put in any kind of solid effort about how do I get these toolbars to show up. If I go to toolbars and it's not showing the standard palette, even though it said it would, and then I say, and so I click it off and then I click it back on, and miraculously every time it pops up the option for me to do that. All right, what I want to do is center all this stuff, and here's a button that wants me to align everything in the center, so my stuff, when I do that, will put everything in the middle. Now I can recognize that my columns don't have to be so big, so I can kind of shrink my columns. Maybe I'd love to have these all be in dollars and cents, so I can click on this dollar sign. Now it's trying to show me dollars and cents, and I don't want to have as many decimal places, so now I've got that. But maybe I'd even prefer to have this stuff not in that accounting term. The dollar sign is kind of floating out there, so I might come in here and format the cells to be a number. And so if I want to format a number, I'll do that, and I want to do currency, and I don't want to show any pennies at this point. Maybe there'd be times when I would, but not right now. And I didn't put my dollar sign in there that time, so back to it, format my cells. It's still ready to do a number, and currency, yeah. Okay, there. So now those are ready. Now I will also want to say, well, knowing what I do from the last month, how do I get the next month? Based on the last month, not typing it. This is not a big typewriter where I'm going to type it in. I might as well be writing on paper. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, you know what? My starting balance is equal to what I had at the end of the last period. So I just say equals, and I go click on there, and that'll make the 12,030 show up here. What's my interest? Well, my interest is exactly the same as it was. So I'm going to go up here and drag that down just like that. Now, let's look at how it draws that up. You can't quite see it there. It says 3 divided by 100 for percent divided by 12 for months times B2. The top one is times B2, which is, it's going to say what's in column B and what's in row 2, and it's going to multiply by the 12,000. Now, if you watch right here where it says B2, and I go down, it now says B3. And so what that did is it kept everything the same, except now it's looking at what's in B3 to see what we're going to get for interest. Let's see. So our interest is, actually, I don't want to leave it like that. Our interest needs to keep on, right? If I let that happen, eventually, strangely, because it's not showing pennies, that's going to become more than $30 a month if I also bring this one down. So it's not going to do what I needed to do for simple interest. Let's see. And then that guy needs me to bring this one down. But it set me up. And you can look at right there, it became, in the 8th month, it became $31. That's not supposed to happen. That's because if I let this show dollars and cents, it's not sticking around at $30. If I bring back some more, you can see that it goes up by a little bit. That's actually letting the interest compound, and I'm not allowed to do that. So what I'm going to do, instead of jumping on the 1230 to multiply by it, I'm going to make sure it always goes back, and this is what makes it simple interest, always goes back to 12,000 to determine how it's going to drive the numbers for simple interest. And what that means is I'm going to go back to this guy where it was B2, and I want to lock 2 as my row. B is my column, and I'm not needing to lock that the way I'm doing stuff, but I want to make sure it stays locked on 2, so I'm going to put a $sign on that. $sign in front of 2 means lock my 2, so that every time I copy it down, it keeps on making it B2, so it keeps going back to the 12,000 instead of going back to numbers that are increasing. So now I caught that, and I can make this back to doing its thing. All right, pretty good. The total interest. Let's take a look at this one. This one says the ending balance is supposed to be equal to, from its row, it's supposed to take this 12,000 plus the 30 and get me at 12,030. When I brought that down from the B2 and C2, the next one is B3 and C3, picks up the 12,030, adds 30 and makes me 12,060. That's going right. I don't want any $signs. I do want that to allow an increase in the values that it's making. So that's fine. And back here, what I had, that one just grabbed its value from the interest column. I want to get the total interest that I've got the whole time. So what this is going to do, it's going to do equals, and it's going to take what I had at the end of last month plus the interest that I get this month. It's going to take those two numbers where they are, and it's going to add them and get me 60. And I want to do that every month. So I can start to see things. Now what happened is that I need to get out to the 84th month. And so I need to make sure that I reach that far. And I did. I actually went by it by a little bit, no big deal. But I want to go through and highlight the months that we found. What we found is year 1, that's 12 months in. This, every period is a month. So I want to find that one, and I want to go highlight it because that's our 12-month mark from our in-class work. And at the end of that, it said, you know, the total interest you got so far is $360. And when we did 1 year of interest, we came up with $360. Then I did 7 years. 7 years is 7 times 12. That's 84 months. So I don't just do this every year. I do it every month. And I have to find the 84th month. And I'll go ahead and hit that with some yellow. And if you look at that, 2,520 as expected. Now what's happening is we're getting $30 every month. And so when we get our $30 every month, we're able to let it grow in the drawer of cash that we're getting for interest. And here it comes. We said, what happens if you're done after 5 months? So that's only 5 periods of a month each. I'll make that yellow. And there's my 5 months. It's not a full year. It didn't make it to the $360, but it did go month by month, getting $30 a month, 5 of the months, and I was able to get $150 in interest. So this shows how that's going to work. There's a difference between that and compound interest, and we're going to look at that after we take a look at compound interest. I will bring this back up, and you'll say, okay, that's how your interest slowly grows. But we're going to look at what happens. Remember that little thing that showed up as like 7 cents and then 15 cents and little extra interest? That's where compounding comes in. So when we begin looking at compound interest, that's where we'll take a look. And that's it for our demo here today in the bonus round.